Добрый вечер, дорогие гости. Good evening, dear guests, and welcome to our conference dedicated to the 75th anniversary of victory in World War II. Without a long introduction, I would like to present you our Anchorage Mayor, Ethan Berkowitz.
Thank you very much for including me as part of this celebration. The end of the Second World War is 75 years ago, and the consequences of it are felt today. I am here in this place because of it. Boundaries have changed. The world is a different place than it was then, but we are confronting many of the same challenges that the great generation faced at that point. So now we look back and see the history of it, but it is a history that many of us who are old enough to remember know people who were there. And because we know people who are personal about that period of time, and the lessons that we learned are lessons that we should carry with us today. It requires all of humanity. The greatest generation, I think, generation also has that strength. We've just not been called upon to use it. And so I am thankful for those who fought and made sacrifice, those who died, those who made a difference, because the world would not have enjoyed the past 75 years of progress and growth without what they had done. But we have entered a period of time where we need to draw on those lessons once more. And we need to remember that we do things better together, that our achievements depend upon one another, and that we're safer when we operate together. So thank you very much. Congratulations. And I sincerely wish that for the 76th anniversary, we can do this in person.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our next guest is Yelena Branson. She is the chair of the Russian Community Council of the USA, president of the Russian Center in New York.
Дорогие друзья, добрый вечер. Приветствую вас из Нью-Йорка. Сегодня мы отмечаем 75-летие окончания Второй мировой войны. В этот день, 2 сентября 1945 года, состоялось подписание акта о капитуляции Японии. Церемония проходила на борту американского линкора «Миссури». За 75 лет выросло несколько поколений, изменилась политическая карта планеты. Но война оставила глубокий след страданий и боль потерь в истории каждой семьи из большого бывшего Советского Союза, многих американцев и в судьбах миллионов людей. Каждый год русские американцы вместе со своими друзьями, американцами, отмечают окончание самой кровопролитной в истории человечества войны и победу союзников над нацистами. В США русские американцы поздравляют российских американских ветеранов, возлагают венки на мемориалы Второй мировой войны, которые есть практически в каждом американском городе, проводят виртуальные концерты, автопробеги, организуют бессмертные полки. Бессмертный полк – это марш нашей благодарной памяти. Это марш, это живая связь между поколениями. В более чем в 20 городах русские американцы проходят нашествия с фотографиями своих родных, отстоявших Отечество и разгромивших нацизм. Вторая мировая война – это крупнейшая в истории человечества война, развязанная фашистской Германией, Италией и Японией. В войну было втянуто 61 государство. Это более 80% населения земного шара. Военные действия велись на территории 40 государств. В годы Второй мировой войны была создана антигитлеровская коалиция стран Советского Союза, США и Великобритании. Большая тройка, которая являла собой уникальный альянс стран с различными политическими системами, объединившимися против общего врага. 11 июня 1942 года Советский Союз и США подписали соглашение о взаимных поставках по ленд-лизу, то есть передаче взаймы военной техники, оружия, боеприпасов. Первые поставки прибыли в Советский Союз уже в 1941 году, но основная часть поставок пришлась на 43-44 года. Существовало около 10 маршрутов доставок грузов по Ленд-лизу в Советский Союз. Многие из них проходили в районах интенсивных военных действий, что требовало от тех, кто обеспечивал поставки, большого мужества и героизма. Помощь от союзников шла не только по программе лет. В США, в частности, был создан Комитет помощи русским в войне, который за время войны собрал и отправил в Советский Союз. Безусловно, в разгром нацизма основной и решающий. 22 апреля 1942 года русские войска уничтожили и продолжают уничтожать больше живой силы, самолетов, танков и пушек нашего общего неприятеля, чем все остальные объединенные нации вместе взятые. Черчилль в послании Сталину 27 сентября 1944 года написал, что именно русская армия выпустила кишки из германской военной машины. Такая оценка нашла отклик во всем мире, потому что в этих словах та самая великая правда, которую никто тогда не подвергал сомнению. Почти 27 миллионов советских граждан погибли на фронтах, в немецком плену, умерли от голода и бомбежек, в геттах и в печах нацистских лагерей смертей. Советский Союз одного из 127, а США одного из силы многих стран. Британия воевала с нацистами и их сателлитами на Средиземном море и в Северной Африке. Американские и британские войска освобождали Италию, открывали Второй фронт. США нанесли мощные сокрушительные удары агрессору на Тихом океане. Мы помним колоссальные жертвы китайского народа. Мы также будем всегда благодарны за помощь, которую оказывали союзники Советскому Союзу, обеспечивая его боеприпасами, сырьем, продовольствием, техникой. Масштабные поставки вооружений и техники США составили около 7% от общих объемов военного производства Советского Союза. В ознаменовании 70-летия окончания войны 21 августа этого года президент России Владимир Путин подписал указ о награждении 17 американцев медалью Ушакова за личное мужество и отвагу, проявленные в годы Второй мировой войны при участии в северных конвоях. Мы от всего сердца благодарим тех, кто подарил нам мирную жизнь. Мы гордимся их бессмертным подвигом на фронте и в тылу. Победа в этой войне всегда будет для нас днем великой радости и огромной скорби от тех, кто не вернулся с войны. Низкий поклон ветеранам. Мы помним о подвиге наших героев на фронте и в тылу. Желаю всем крепкого здоровья и мирного неба.
Спасибо, Леночка, замечательная речь. А теперь я предоставляю слово нашему уважаемому ветерану Великой Отечественной войны. Now I'm giving the word to our World War II veteran, Борис Фельдман. Борис, он также является президентом Американской ассоциации ветеранов. He is the president of the American Association of Veterans and Disabled in World War II. He was born in Vinnytsia, Ukraine, and today he lives in Brooklyn, New York. And guess what? Now, most importantly, that this year, on December 29, he's going to be 100 years old. So here's Борис Михайлович. Слово предоставляется вам. He's with his helper Farhad Nasibov, who is activist of Russian youth.
Конечно, в эту войну все приложили руку, чтобы была эта победа. Америка особенно не только руку подала, а подала первые дни свое сердце, все свое богатство, что могла она помогла Красной Армии.
Мгм.
Большие потери
Остановитесь,
были
пожалуйста.
первые дни, первые месяцы войны.
Борис
Да,
Михайлович,
пожалуйста.
остановитесь на минуточку. Everybody gave their share in World War II when it began, but especially the United States of America. It gave all the treasures to World War II. Борис Михайлович.
Ну, конечно, да, я продолжаю. Основная тяжесть, конечно, как отметила Еленочка, легла на советских воинов.
Мгм.
Безусловно, патриотизм тогда советских воинов было на уровне фантастики.
Останавливайтесь, пожалуйста. And the biggest blow was taken by the USSR. Can you повторите, пожалуйста, второе предложение?
Я говорю, что все советские люди были очень патриотичны,
All the
но
Soviet people were patriotic.
воевали практически почти голыми руками первые дни войны, я акцентирую внимание,
But we were
до
fighting
помощи
just about with
настоящей.
bare hands, especially during the first days of war.
Конечно, сейчас, когда техника на таком фантастическом уровне, трудно даже представить себе, люди могли шли в бой 2 человека одной винтовкой, но это было.
Mhm. Well, right now, the modernized weapons are so sophisticated, so it's really hard to imagine that back then 2 soldiers were going to war just sharing one rifle.
В войну еще большое подспорье, участие и сочувствие американского народа. Нести память погибших так, как она сейчас живет и ищет неимоверные какие-то новшества в жизни. Поэтому сейчас молодежь ищет много чего интересного. Я думаю, что в настоящее время те, которые придут руководить государствами, поймут, что войну надо отодвигать как можно дальше, надольше, чтобы... Потому что это жертвы, это беды, это страшные испытания для человечества.
Was saying that in the war should be glorifying the people who gave that victory to us, and he wants to specify that most of all it was not the commanders, not the leaders of the countries, but actually the soldiers who gave us that victory, who brought us the peace. He also wants to say that the war was a really, really horrible thing to the whole world, and millions of people lost their lives. And today's people at power should think and remember the tragedy of the war and push back the war as far as they possibly can. Thank you. Борис Михайлович, спасибо.
Ну да, теперь я немножко окунусь в то время, те годы. О себе в 2 словах. Я в первые же дни войны попадаю на фронт, и в первый же день войны нас окружают немцы. Везут в плен. Я удираю с одним другом из плена, но попадаю в местечко, откуда фактически меня мобилизовали, и там уже образовано гетто. Так что мне пришлось еще 2,5 года побыть в гетто.
Борис
Я
Михайлович,
думаю, что каждый из вас Да. Я увлекаюсь натурой, так что вы меня останавливаете.
I will be very brief. Yeah, I'm in and out from Zoom for technical reasons. I don't know why. It never happened before. So anyway, he said that on the first day of war, he was captured, and but then he escaped. So keep talking.
Попал в гетто, естественно, что дух речи, противодействия, оно у меня сохранилось. Мы кровью подписались, что будем верны друг другу. Эти все бумаги, ну, будем так называть, прокламации, что ли, они сейчас находятся в музее, еврейском музее в Нью-Йорке. Ну, а теперь только эпизод войны. Я хочу, чтобы, конечно, молодежь себе сейчас не представлять, что такое идти в атаку.
And then Igor, maybe you can help me out because, like I said, I couldn't hear a lot of what he was saying.
Yes, I would love to. Boris was saying that he was surrounded by Germans and he was able to escape from that surrounding, but he got into a ghetto, which was like in a village nearby, and he spent some time in the ghetto, but he wanted to fight, and he and his friends made a riot in the ghetto, and they signed a paper with their blood that they will be loyal to each other. And that piece of paper he was keeping with him and brought it over to the United States, and right now it's in the museum in New York. He also wants the youth to realize how horrible the war was, and now that's what he was going to.
Okay.
Now that's what he's going
Борис
to talk about.
Михайлович, можно закончить, а то мы не успеем для остальных презентаторов.
Про молодежь вы хотели?
Да, скажите последнее про молодежь. Ваши пожелания.
Я хотел бы, конечно, закончить тем, чтобы молодежь, которая будет нести мир, потому что удел молодежи нести мир в мир, который в будущем будет для детей ихним внукам и правнукам. Я им хочу пожелать, чтобы они находили всегда мирные только действия, уважение друг к другу и почитать. Все народы должны любить друг друга, чтобы не было антагонизма между народами, потому что это будет очень сложная жизнь, если мы будем не проявим уважение к всем народам, которые только существуют на нашей планете.
Okay.
Ну, а добро пожаловать в этом мире.
Okay. His wishes to the youth is to carry peace. I will be very brief, is to carry peace, because without peace, the world will not be able to survive. So peace is the most important thing that, and we have to respect each other and love each other. And peace should be promoted for all times. Thank you, Борис Михайлович. Спасибо большое. So, World War II was by far the largest and the deadliest war in history of mankind. And it took lives between 72 million people. So before I introduce our first presenter of the night, I would like to say a few words about our organization and why we decided to host this event. First of all, guided by our mission to inform and educate, we put much efforts in presenting comprehensive information on World War II in our Immortal Regiment and Russian Kaleidoscope groups on Facebook, where you can find lots of information, archives, memoirs, photographs, videos, interviews, virtual concerts dedicated to our beloved veterans on May 9th. So also we educate children. We run the children's club and we teach the concept of war to them. And we ask the parents to pick and choose age appropriate materials from what we can offer. And last but not least, our members initiated, organized and conducted the first in history of Alaska Immortal Regiment, the event to commemorate all those who died during World War II and to celebrate the end of this deadly war and the victory of Allied troops in Europe. So today we'll be talking about contribution of nations and ethnic groups of Russia and USA into the war, into the victory of war. And one of the greatest examples of this contribution was Alaska-Siberia air route within the Land-Lease program. I would like to mention the wonderful words of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd US president, who said at the Yalta conference on March 1st in 1945, he said, "The structure of world peace cannot be the work of one man or one party or one nation. It must be a peace which rests on the cooperative effort of the whole world." And right now, Inna Dozortseva from Krasnoyarsk, Russia, will be talking about ALSID, or Alaska-Siberia Air Route. Inna Dozortseva is the head of the External Relations Department of the city administration in Krasnoyarsk. Okay, Inna, are you ready?
I'm sorry, 142,616 United States Marines participated in World War II. And 29 of them, quite a small group in comparison, who became known as San Diego for their training. These 29 Navajo men were selected and recruited by the United States Marine leadership to develop a Navajo code, communication code, based on a complex and unwritten Navajo language. World War II was not the only time when the secret codes were developed using Native American languages. During World War I, for example, Choctaw language was used to transmit secret messages, and it was instrumental in a successful surprise attacks on the Germans. In fact, after World War I, Germany and Japan sent students to study American native languages and cultures such as Cherokee, Choctaw, and Comanche. One of the thousands of languages spoken worldwide, the Navajo language seemed to be the perfect option as a code. Besides its complexity and its oral nature, only very few non-Navajo native people could speak that language. So the original 29 Navajo recruits began developing the code by taking the words from their native language and applying them to the implements of the war. For example, the names of different birds were used to identify aircraft, the types of airplanes, and the similar strategies were used for the battleships. Well, here, Galina was supposed to show the pictures because...
I'm going to, Marina, I'm going to. Just 1 second.
So it was quite a clever and quite surprisingly difficult task for anybody to decode the messages that were sent in a very complex Navajo language. So yeah, you can see that the dive bomber was Chicken Hawk. How do you like that? Or torpedo plane, Swallow. So, and like I said, the same strategies were used to stand for naval ships. So by encoding the language with a Navajo word substitution, brought the code to the next level. It made it virtually unbreakable. And this unbreakable code gave the Marines a critical advantage throughout the war. This system also enabled the code talkers to translate 3 lines of English in 20 seconds, not 30 minutes, as was common for the code breaking machines at the time. During the nearly month-long battle for Iwo Jima, for example, 6 Navajo talker Marines successfully transmitted more than 800 messages without an error. Marine leadership noted after the battle that the code talkers were critical to the victory at Iwo Jima. Major Howard Connor, who was the signal officer for the Navajo talkers, said, "Were it not for the Navajos, the Marines would never have taken Iwo Jima." Even at the end of the war, the Navajo code remained unbreakable. Well, unfortunately, the hard work of the Navajo code talkers was not recognized until after the declassification of the operations in 1964. All in all, in the course of World War II, about 400 Navajo code talkers participated in every major Marine operation in the Pacific Theater. In 1982, President Ronald Reagan gave the code talkers a certificate of recognition and declared August 14th, Navajo Code Talker Day. President Bill Clinton awarded the Congressional Gold Medal to the original 29 code talkers in the year 2000. And President George W. Bush presented the medals to the 4 surviving code talkers at the ceremony in the Capitol Rotunda in Washington in July of 2001. So even small group could make such a huge contribution to the victory that everybody was striving for. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. So I don't know if Ina Dozortseva is still here. I will go back to Alaska, Siberia, and I have a backup plan. So if somebody doesn't show up, I have some information to report. So Alaska, Siberia, air route. First of all, I am very grateful to Alexander Dolitsky, who allowed to use all of the materials I can find, videos, and copy everything. He was supposed to be the main speaker, but because of the COVID situation, he could not join us. So with the German invasion of the Soviet Union on June 22nd, 1941, the 2 nations recognized the need to put aside their ideological differences. Aware of the urgency of the situation, President Roosevelt extended Lend-Lease aid to the Soviet Union on October 30th, 1941, following a fact-finding visit to Moscow by his emissary Harry Lloyd Hopkins. By August of 1942, the United States and Soviet Union had agreed to open a similar route for the transfer of aircraft. It began in Great Falls, Montana. So you can see right here, the Great Falls right here on the map, and extended across northwestern Canada to Ladd Army Airfield near Fairbanks, where Soviet pilots, here she is coming, Ina is coming, where Soviet pilots took over the job of ferrying American-built aircraft the rest of the way using a series of Siberian bases that terminated in 370,000 trucks, 132,000 machine guns, 4 million tons of food, 107 million tons of cotton, and more than 15 million pairs of army boots, among other items. At its peak in 1944, American help amounted to 12% of the Soviet gross national product. Ladd Army Field, now Fort Wainwright in Fairbanks, Alaska, served as a key transfer point for nearly 8,000 American-built combat aircraft from the United States to the Russian battlefronts on the Alaska-Siberia air route. In the 3 years of the route's existence, thousands of Americans worked with Soviet personnel on the cooperative program. From 1942 to 1945, the Alaska-Siberia land-lease operations demonstrated that two nations could set aside different views, cultural values, and ideologies to achieve common mutual beneficial goal to defeat Nazi Germany and its Axis powers. I would like also to show this picture, very famous one. When the group from the Russian embassy came to Alaska to collect the soil from the Fort Richardson National Cemetery, the director of the cemetery, Virginia Walker, was gifted this framed photograph, and I had time to take a picture of it. So we have actually two monuments. One is in Alaska-Siberia World War II, which is in Fairbanks. And on May 9th this year, another monument was opened in Magadan, Russia. And the text is in the text of the video. It's a short video, is in Russian, but I sent the translations of the video to our English-speaking guests.
Thank you.
Секунду, нас слышно, нет, Красноярск?
В Магадане открыли мемориал героям воздушной трассы Аляска-Сибирь. По этому маршруту летчики перегоняли самолеты, которые поставлялись в СССР. По ней также перевозили пассажиров и почту. Трасса начиналась в городе Фэрбэнкс на Аляске и заканчивалась в Красноярске. Ее разделили на 5 этапов, каждый из которых обслуживал перегоночный авиапул. С 42 по 45 годы через восточную часть страны было доставлено почти 8 тысяч самолетов и 18 тысяч тонн грузов. В Магадане памятник установили на 13-м километре федеральной трассы Колыма, недалеко от старого аэропорта. В годы войны там находился один из пунктов снабжения трассы. Похожий монумент находится и на начальной точке маршрута на Аляске.
Идея была в том, чтобы увековечить память и увековечить память вот этой дружбе. И поэтому появилась идея, чтобы сделать 2 летчиков. Раз они летчики, значит крыло. Раз это памятник, значит пьедестал. Постамент. Значит, на постаменте надо мемориальную табличку соответствующую. Поэтому вот этот комплекс, он как бы, ну, я скажу, что достаточно, идея пришла достаточно быстро.
Воздушная трасса Алсиб была сложной и опасной. Летать приходилось над безлюдной местностью, и в случае отказа техники быстро организовать эвакуацию было очень непросто. За время работы трассы в авиакатастрофах погибли 114 человек.
Инна, а вы готовы? Инна Дозорцева.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to greet you from Krasnoyarsk, Russia. It's really nice to meet you all and to see and hear so different and so interesting people and stories. I'm going to speak about ALSIP, Alaska-Siberia Air Route. It was an air route over which during the World War II, thousands of American planes were ferried to the USSR as a part of the Land-Lease program. Its starting point was in Fairbanks, Alaska, and then final one here in Krasnoyarsk. You told about the main facts about the Krasnoyarsk air route, and that's why I would like to continue about Krasnoyarsk itself. ALSIP history commemoration in Krasnoyarsk. Krasnoyarsk cherishes the memory of the pilots and crews of the ALSIP air route. All sites of plane crashes within Krasnoyarsk borders are marked with a special memorial signs, and one of the Krasnoyarsk pocket parks situated in the aviation history part of the city near the former Krasnoyarsk airport was named in 2019 the ALSIP Heroes Park. In future, it's planned to place there an ALSIP memorial, the artistic competition for which was held in 2020. In total, 9 sculptures from different cities of Russia submitted their projects for the competition. The project of the Krasnoyarsk sculpture Andrei Kianitsyn was chosen as the winner. It shows the figures of Soviet pilot and navigator accompanied by an American instructor with a semicircle arch over them, a symbol of the air bridge between the United States and Russia. In November 2019, the Krasnoyarsk House of Officers housed the premiere of a theater play dedicated to the Krasnoyarsk Air Route, also known as ALSIC. Special assignment took place. The performance is based on the book by Grigory Kiselyov, Pioneers of Air Convoys, published in 2015. The play is directed by Ivan Kunchevsky. Previously, in November 2018, Mayor of Krasnoyarsk Sergei Yeremin signed Memorandum of Understanding between the Bravo 369 Flight Foundation, the United States of America, and Krasnoyarsk City Administration of the joint implementation of the ALSIC 2020 project and recreation of the flight along the Krasnoyarsk air route, starting from Fairbanks, piloting original planes of the World War II. Besides the flight, the project implies the implementation of the series of different events, exhibition, lectures, creating memorial sites, eternalizing the memory of the perished pilots. The staging of the play special assignment was covered by a grant from the Krasnoyarsk City Administration won by the Krasnoyarsk Museum Victory Memorial. In 2016, the specialists of Aerogel completed the last stage of the operation to remove the American C-47 Douglas aircraft from the Taimyr tundra. This aircraft in March 1943 was ferried to the USSR under the Land-Lease program via the ALSIC air route. Having crash landing on Taimyr 2 years after the end of the war, the Douglas C-47 was no longer able to get up in the air. The mission of evacuation of the aircraft united Russian and foreign specialists. Air and river transport was involved. The crew of the Mi-80 helicopter was in charge of the main part of operation. In addition of the aircraft, the expedition found number of aircraft represented historical interest. Radio equipment, special purchase for heating aircraft, cans of stews delivered under Land-Lease of the USSR. All these findings, along with the C-47 Douglas, will become exhibits of the Future Park Museum of the Exploration of the North, which is planned to be organized on the Molotov Island in Krasnoyarsk. Many times in its history, Krasnoyarsk served as a bridge between countries and cultures. No wonder it was Krasnoyarsk air route that linked the United States with the Soviet Union and proved that our countries can work together and be friends. Krasnoyarsk continues playing the bridge city role. It provides easy access to the beautiful Siberian nature, rich historical background, and great opportunities for economical cooperation, bringing to Siberia representatives of different countries and nations. Uniting Asia and Europe with our famous Asia-Siberia-Europe Chamber Orchestra Musical Festival. United athletes of the whole world by challenging the cities of the world to present themselves in dance, both classical, like our famous dance groups Yenisei Doors and the Denka Krasnoyarsk State Academic Dance Ensemble of Siberia, and modern, like famous jazz ballet of Valery Teroshkin, or our young hip-hop team Harley Quinn, already a world championship winner. We remember and cherish our history and work hard to make our city one of the best on the planet. Welcome to Krasnoyarsk, the soul and energy of Siberia. Thank you very much for your attention and your invitation to participate in this conference.
Thank you, Ina. Thank you very much. Before we move on, I want to thank Marina Gantz, who jumped in during the technical difficulties and started her presentation. So Marina Gantz is a former SD teacher specialist, one of the founding members of Craft of Alaska, and she is also she was a recipient of the Russian Best Volunteer of the Year by Bridge Builders. So, and our next presenter is Jean Pollard, Dr. Jean Pollard. She is a member of Bridge Builders of Anchorage as well. So she's going to speak on the Alaska Highway. Jean, can you hear me?
I hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and Mr. Andrew Knoll is going to assist you with slideshows.
Yes. Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead. Yeah, you may start. You may begin.
Okay, the picture, okay. These pictures you see there, okay, they're from the book right there on the left side where it has the Alaska Military Highway and World War II Black Regiment. And the individual, his name was William Griggs. He was the photographer during that time to film all of this. And the thing is that he did the filming, and then he had, when it was all over, everything, he had to turn all these pictures into in Washington, D.C. And he was smart enough, he was to know not to give them all the pictures. And the reason for that is he gave them, because what happened was after the war, he had put these pictures that he took, he made a book out of it, okay? And then after that, he went back to DC to try to get the Pentagon. He wanted to get some more of the pictures out because he wanted to do a part 2 of the book, because a lot of people were so impressed with these pictures. And they told him that all those files that he had given them, like thousands of more pictures, all those files had been burned up in a fire. And he knew that wasn't true. They deliberately didn't want to get all this out. So this is a book that I really learned a lot from as well. And by the way, when you see them there with the rifles on their shoulders, that's another thing. That was just a picture because there were no bullets in there. They would not trust the black soldier to have bullets in there because of the fact they thought that they would turn the gun on them and start, hurting them. And that's why they wouldn't, they didn't have any bullets in there. Oh, that's me.
And we have a video of one of the soldiers who worked on the highway.
Yeah, and he actually froze to death. There were over 400 of them that froze to death because the general did not want to allow. What it was is he said he didn't want to have the black soldiers to go come into Alaska, and he was afraid that if they did, and they went up near Fairbanks and went into at the time, just going to Fairbanks, that they might begin to mingle with an Eskimo or white native, someone up there, and therefore they refused to let the black soldiers go into the town, and they made them sleep outside of the town in tents. at like 75 degrees below zero, and over 400 froze to death. True story. They didn't, just because, and that was a form of racism back then. They wouldn't even let them go into the town and had them go
Let's
through
watch the video.
Okay.
In wartime, we were surprised in what happened and what we had to go through. So it didn't work a hardship because we were concerned, all of it was hardships.
In 1942, the advent of World War in the Pacific hurled men from the South into the far North to defend America's northwest flank.
And I'd been in service 2 days when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. When I went in for a year, but after 2 days I was in for the duration.
President Roosevelt ordered that a road to Alaska be built immediately. With inadequate equipment and supplies, troops were rushed frantically to the edge of the Canadian wilderness and asked to achieve the impossible. America's military at that time was racially segregated. Black engineers had to fight not only the devilish hardships of road building through wilderness, they did so while being treated as second-class warriors or even convicts. Refused leave, barred from eating or using latrines with white soldiers, called animals or worse, and always expected to fail. They froze at 70 degrees below zero, sweated under blistering heat, choked on clouds of mosquitoes, lashed bridges together out of timber they had to mill themselves, pulled trucks buried up to the axles from the melted permafrost. The only thing they did not do was fail. The supposedly inferior black regiments outperformed their white counterparts while, together, they built the 1,500-mile Alaska-Canada highway in just 8 months. The success of the black regiments building the Alaska Highway opened the doors for widespread integration of the military and eventually American society itself.
We know it happened, and we were a part of it, and I guess we are proud to be part of it.
So Gene got to went and interviewed this man, Reginald Beverly, and created a 75th anniversary celebration.
And Andrew and I, Andrew have put out on the internet, if anyone had a relative that had worked on the highway in 1942, during that era of time, and this man that you just saw speaking, his granddaughter, she then contacted us, and Andrew and I, we were at Barnes and Noble's trying to get some other work done, and then Andrew said, "Hey, Gene, look, we got a hit. Someone, they're contacting us." And sure enough, then I got her information and called her back, then Andrew and the other team members said, "Gene, you gotta go. You gotta go now and go interview him." And so I ended up taking out the camera crew with me from Alaska, and we went down to Virginia. They went ahead of me. I went a day later, and that's the man that was you just heard speaking. We interviewed him, and a wonderful thing about that, he lived long enough because when I tried to get the legislators to make it a law as far as about this highway to honor these soldiers for what they did and how they were treated, and I wanted them to make it a law like Alaska Highway Day to honor these soldiers because as an educator, I had a minor in history and I wanted this to go into the school. And I knew we could not ever put it in the school unless there was a law attached to it. So what happened was when I went to give my testimony, we were doing it online, and there were people that were saying that I was lying and making this up, this didn't happen, because they didn't know that I had left Alaska also went looking. And Andrew had, put a message out. So they didn't know we were doing this. And so what ended up happening then is when I told them in June, I said, wait a minute, I have some individuals that want to let them share their testimony, what happened in 1942. And so Mr. Beverly's daughter, she dialed into Juneau and said, my father, he's here and he wants to share what really happened, that this is a true story. And so Mr. Beverly, he got on the phone. He said, my name is Reginald Beverly. I was 26 when I went up to Alaska to help build the Alaska Highway. And then he said, today I am 102 years old. And that's when they said, oh my goodness, we cannot let this man die and not realize the impact that he had in 1942 on, the highway. And that's how they end up then deciding, yes, we have to pass this bill, make it a law. And that's basically because, and then there's Mr. Larkins. He also called in. Now, Christine, there's Christine McClure, her father, he was the white officer over the all-black 93rd. And this Mr. Larkins, he was in the 93rd during 1942. And so she has been assisting us because her father, he was one of the few white officers who were not racist during that period. Because, and the reason why, this is why she's that way, because of the way her father raised her. And she tells the story about her dad, how he was playing baseball with some blacks, and his father went down and pulled him out and said, because he didn't want him to do that, to mix with the black, at the time, the soldiers. And so when the father went to another location and he was working with other black soldiers, he took a picture of himself with these black soldiers, and then he sent the picture back to his father and said, I'd like to see you come get me out of this. So he was very, and so Christine McClure, they've written several books about this, what happened and everything. And they came to Alaska, she and her husband, about 2 years ago, to meet us and share more information with us about what happened because of her father being one of the officers. It is a wonderful story. And she's a wonderful lady, she and her husband. And this picture here is during a celebration when Mr. Larkins, he was 99 years old when he came up here, and she found him. She was able to find him. Let me call you back. She was able to find him. Sorry, I had to stop that. She was able to find him herself and interviewed him and then called and let us know that she had found another soldier from 1942, and she gave us a number, and so I called, and from that incident, then that's how we were able to get a picture, but he was 99. And I did check with him about August the 5th. By the way, he made 100 years old. He wanted to come back and celebrate his 100th birthday here in Alaska. And actually, we didn't feel he should do that because of the virus. And first thing, they wouldn't let anyone 100 years old on the plane. And he was very disappointed. He wanted to come back because at first it's amazing because this man, what he went through in 1942, when I first got in touch with him, and that's him with the head on, and then the three guys, the two on his left side and one standing behind him. Those are his three sons that came up here with him. They help him, and it's just such an amazing. That was during the time right there that the mayor was sitting there, and the assistant to the mayor and others were able to come. They wanted to come, but it was during a morning like at 9 o'clock on a Monday in June, and most other people that wanted to come were at work. So that's why they couldn't come up. I mean, come to this to meet him. But he's an amazing man. He's 100 years old. He lives in New Orleans, and he cuts his own grass, not riding a lawnmower, but he walks around cutting his own grass today even. Isn't that amazing? And he said his secret for looking great and still being able to walk and do all this, he said his secret is he eats a lot of garlic. Yeah, that's it. He said just eat garlic and you look young forever. So I'm gonna try it. but he's wonderful. Yeah, and this picture is I use that picture. You see, it says 2 roads to civil rights, and I wrote a poem, and actually that poem that I wrote it helped me become a published poet, because I compared this poem where it says 2 roads to civil rights. What I was doing is comparing the fact that Martin Luther King, he marched on the road for civil rights, and these soldiers built the road towards civil rights. And by the way, in Washington, D.C., I found out that they call the Alaska Highway the road to civil rights. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Jean. I would like to say that Jean dedicated 10 years of her life to this project. And for that, she was given the doctor's degree. Thank you so much. And I would like to give you a round of applause.
Oh, well, thank you. And I had a wonderful team, because Andrew is our tech man. I was a counselor for his children at the school. Wonderful. And so the team really, as I picked a wonderful team to help me here.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would like to mention also the Tuskegee Airmen, who were the first Black military aviators in the U.S. Army Air Corps, and their impressive performance earned them more than 150 distinguished flying crosses and helped encourage the eventual integration of the U.S. Armed Forces. So thank you, Jean.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and of course, and thank you, Andrew, for being a part. He's an awesome tech man. Wonderful. He can do all this stuff I can't do. So he's amazing.
So our next presenter is Hiroka Harada. She's going to talk about Japanese Americans. She's a professor and coordinator, Japanese program, director of Center for Japanese Language and Culture, and a recipient of 2015 American Association of Teachers of Japanese Teacher Award. And she's also a board member of Bridge Builders of Anchorage. So here she is.
So, hi, Galina. Thank you for this opportunity to be part of this event today. So I'd like to mention about the Center for Japanese Language and Culture. And the center was established to commemorate Montgomery Dixon, who died in the 2011 tsunami in Japan. Monty was a UAA graduate. He majored in Japanese, and I was his teacher and academic advisor. After graduating from UAA in May 2009, he participated in the JET program and taught English in Rikusen Takata in Iwate Prefecture. The center was established in part of Monty's memorial project, which was initiated by the Japan Foundation Center for Global Partnership. Today, I would like to commemorate the victory of one Japanese-American combat team that greatly contributed to the rescue of a trapped American battalion in Europe, which is called the Lost Battalion. Shortly after the attack on Pearl Harbor on December the 7th, 1941, President Franklin Roosevelt signed the Executive Order 9099 in February 1942. This led to the relocation of persons of Japanese descent, both the first generation of Japanese and Nisei, the second generation of Japanese in America, who were US citizens by birthright. More than 100,000 Japanese Americans were placed into the internment camp, and there are 10 internment camps located in remote areas. 7,900 of them were American citizens. In winter of 1943, the War Relocation Authority issued their loyalty questionnaire in an attempt to separate the loyal and the disloyal. Question 27 and 28 were called yes, yes, no, no questions. Question 27 reads, are you willing to serve in the armed forces of the United States on combat duty, wherever ordered? And the question 28 reads, will you swear unqualified allegiance to the United States of America and faithfully defend the United States from any and all attacks by foreign and domestic forces, and forswear any form of allegiance or disobedience to the Japanese emperor or any other foreign government, power, or organization. With this, the Japanese Americans in the camps were forced with a difficult situation. Parents, children, siblings, and friends sometimes disagreed about loyalty to one's parents and family, loyalty to one's country, and to principles of the Constitution. The yes, yes boys were criticized in the camps, but behind their yes, yes answers were their strong belief that if they fought for America, they could be able to earn respect and put an end to racism toward Japanese. They did not mind risking their lives for that. Of the over 100,000 Japanese Americans in relocation camps, internment camps, about 23,000 were draft age Nisei men, and they had to answer these questions right in front of American examiners. Utilizing these yes, yes boys, Roosevelt announced the formation of the 442nd Infantry Regimental Combat Team. Here, I would like to mention about the fierce battle in which 442, I'm going to call them 442. So in which 442 had to face on German soil. The 442 received the order to rescue the Texan battalion, which was surrounded by German force in the mountain in October 1944. They were called the Lost Battalions, and it was the most fierce and heavy fighting in order to rescue 211 trapped soldiers. The 442 suffered over 800 casualties. The first patrol of Nisei soldiers reached the Texans on the 4th day of battle. The lost battalion was saved. One Texan soldier remembers the rescue as follows. When the 442 broke through to us, we were very tired, hungry, and cold, and in all probability would not have been able to hold more than 36 hours longer. The first man I met of the 442 was Sergeant Takeo Senzaki of Los Angeles. We all had tears in our eyes and were glad to see them, and our emotions were so pent up that we could not speak for 10 or 15 minutes. We were so happy to see the men of the 442 to be rescued by the men of the 442. And it would be difficult to describe our feelings at that time. When this fierce campaign was over, General Darkist assembled the division to express his gratitude to the 442. Before the ceremony, he noticed only a small representation of the 442 unit and reproached them of their low attendance. Their answer was, "Sir, that's all that is left of the man." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hiroka. I just wanted also to mention that after the war, many Nisei soldiers became involved in politics and, with government. And I didn't know that, but I learned that thanks to Nisei soldiers,
Yeah.
Hawaii became the next state. So it's, so that is really wonderful. So yeah, huge contribution after the World War II too.
I think so.
Yeah, and our last presenter is going to be Igor Korchin. He's going to talk about the peoples of the Middle Asia. Russia, as well as the United States, is made of this colorful ethnic fabric, and we have also lots of different nations and ethnic groups. And Igor is going to talk about the Middle Asian people. Igor, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Galina. I was originally thinking that I'm going to present it in Russian, but I now realize that it's better if I'm going to be talking in English. So forgive me, I'm going to be translated as I go. The victory in the World War II and in Great Patriotic War, that's how it's called in Russia, is a heroic achievement of all the people of the USSR. Soldiers from Central Asia also contributed to the common cause. Uzbeks, Turkmens, Tajiks, Kyrgyz, Kazakhs, like residents of other parts of the country, fought bravely against Nazism. The soldiers and officers of the military units formed in the Central Asia republics have performed many heroic deeds which cannot be forgotten. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about each nation group. Kazakhs, the population of Kazakhstan at that time was about 6 million people, Kazakh Republic of Soviet Union, and 1,200,000 soldiers and officers became participants of the World War II. and another 3,500 Kazakhs became partisans. About 589,000 of those people were killed in bloody battles. That's almost every second person from Kazakhstan who fought in the World War II was killed in battles. Kazakhs took part in many military operations. Together with commanders in arms, they fought on Kursk and on the streets of besieged Stalingrad, and they did not allow Nazis to break through the Leningrad borders. Leningrad was sieged, and Kazakh troops were helping to defend the Leningrad. Also, one of the most striking victories won by Soviet troops during the war was the heroic defense of Moscow. And the 316th Division, commanded by General Ivan Pamphilov, especially. This was a military unit formed mainly by Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, and Uzbeks, and they stopped German tank offense along the Volokholamsk highway. That was a truly heroic deed. About 28 people armed with mostly rifles, they destroyed over 20 tanks, and they basically prevented Germans from breaking through into Moscow. Their heroic deed is still studied in military schools. Now I would like to talk about Kyrgyz. At the beginning of the war, the population of Kyrgyz SSR was slightly below 1.5 million people, of whom 365,000 residents of the Republic were called up to the front. They fought as part of the legendary Pamphilov Division, the one I was just talking about. They fought from Stalingrad to Berlin. They liberated many countries of Europe. About 115,000 of Kyrgyz laid down their heads. Along the residents of the Republic who went to the front, thousands of people were awarded by various orders and medals, of which 73 soldiers and officers received the title of Hero of the Soviet Union. More than 20 Kyrgyz became full holders of Order of Glory. Tajiks is also a nation in Russia. During the Great Patriotic War in World War II, 289,000 of Tajik people were drafted into the ranks of the Red Army. And another 45,000 people went to the labor front, from where many also ended up in military units. Of these, about 100,000 soldiers and officers were killed. So roughly about a third of people who went to the front died in that war. There was very heavy loss of population of the Republic. The population of the Republic at that time was about 1.5 million of people, and 100,000 of them died in that war. More than 55,000 soldiers were awarded by courage shown at the front, of which 21 are full holders of the Order of Glory. Turkmens. Based on the census, which was held in 1939 in USSR, the population of Turkmenistan was 1,252,000 people. Of these, about 300,000 residents of the Republic went to front. About 86,000 soldiers did not return home. They fought on Kursk, near Moscow, in Caucasus, and Stalingrad. The countries of Eastern Europe were liberated from Nazis by those troops. Medals of honor were awarded to 78,000 soldiers, and 112 Turkmen people received the title of Hero of the Soviet Union. On the eve of the war, there were almost 6.5 million people in Uzbek SSR. And from 1941 to 1945, about 420,000 people joined the army. I'm sorry, 420,000 were killed out of 1.5 million who joined the army. And this nation gave birth to 338 heroes of the Soviet Union, and 53 more soldiers during the Great Patriotic War were awarded of the Order of Glory of all 3 degrees. And 120,000 Uzbeks received various military awards. They were also part of the legendary Panfilov Division, which stopped tanks by Moscow. They fought in Stalingrad, Caucasus, took part in the battles of Smolensk, Kiev, Odessa, Sevastopol. They liberated Poland, Hungary, and other countries from Nazis invaders. So as you can see, there were a lot of smaller nations from USSR who also gave their lives for the victory in the World War II. And we are all thankful to them until nowadays. Thank you.
Thank you, Igor. You heard the term, the Great Patriotic War, and the term is not generally used outside the former Soviet Union, and the closest term is the Eastern Front of World War II. So, but in Russia and some other post-Soviet countries, the term is given great significance. It is accepted as a representation of the most important part of the World War II. Also, I wanted to add to Igor's presentation that the Uzbek people and some other Middle Asian people, they adopted a lot of homeless children, sometimes up to 15 children in a family they would adopt. So, and Tajik people, for example, not only they gave their manpower to the war, but also Tajik people, the best treasure for them they valued back then were horses. And during the first weeks of war, they donated the highest breed, 200 horses to the front. So I also have, we are a little bit over because of our technical problems, but I have a great video about the Uzbek people. It's called 101. It's 7 minutes. I can show it to you if you wish, or we can wrap it up and just go on. So how does everybody feel?
Yeah, it's almost midnight in New York.
Okay, okay. So then let's celebrate. So before we celebrate, and so we have a person who is going to say a toast. Carol Anderson. I would like to thank everybody, especially the presenters. And we made it through, despite all of the technical difficulties. So we made it through. And thank you, everybody who attended. And we couldn't connect with you too, but hopefully people saw us on Facebook. So thank you so much. And now I give the last word to Carol Anderson. So a few words about Carol. Her prior career was in television, and she received an Emmy Award in Technology and Engineering. In Anchorage, she worked at the Northern Forum and Institute of North, organizations founded by Governor Walter Hickel, where she served as his executive aide. She is a board member of multiple organizations like Perseverance Theater, Japan-Alaska Association, Alaska Moving Image Preservation Association, and Alaska World Affairs Council. She is also a member of Craft of Alaska. So Carol, the last word is for you.
Thank you very much, Galina. Can everyone hear me just fine?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. And Galina, I would love to see that video link that you just mentioned. So please share it with all of us. And then also, Igor, I'm so interested in the history that you have studied. And so I certainly do hope that I can learn more from you. And the wonderful lady that spoke earlier from Krasnoyarsk, someday I do hope to visit your beautiful city. And I hope we can become friends.
Of course, yeah, visit our beautiful New York City.
So I'm here in Anchorage, Alaska, and I must tell you, when Galina and I first started speaking a few months ago, I was certainly hoping to host and bring up Mr. Dulitsky, the famed author and historian who's an expert on Alsib and so many other dimensions with Alaska-Russian history. Perhaps on one of our next celebratory occasions. But Galina was so persistent, so tenacious, and I was very honored and humbled when she asked me to come and speak and offer a toast. I found myself going back deep into my own research and my understandings from what information and opportunities that I've pursued in these recent years. I have a great interest in the Arctic. It's my home. And I do my utmost in every way possible to and negotiations. And as Galina mentioned, I'm involved with a number of organizations to help further those causes. So on this day, I am so honored to be with all of you. And bear with me if my toast is a little bit long-winded, but again, I found myself going back through my own notes and research from these recent years. On this day, September 2nd and or 3rd, globally it's recognized that in Europe, Russia, and Asia, the World War II Great Patriotic War campaign ended. And that's why we have this second date of September 2nd or 3rd that recognizes that. And bear with me while I put my reading glasses on. I wanted to come up with the right kind of language that would really portray the importance and significance of this incredible day. And again, there's a great feeling of humility when I realize that others have gone before me and found a way to express ideas that are so incredibly important. So for these viewers tonight, and for anyone that watches recordings or comes back or would like me to email this presentation, I believe that there are so many ideas that we have to hold very close to our hearts. So first, with your permission, if I may speak for a few minutes, I reread the speech that was presented by President Putin on June 18th of 2020. He spoke of the Great Patriotic War and the Second World War and how it left a deep imprint on every family's history, how the fates of millions of people, their sufferings and their pain of loss. Behind all these words, there is also pride, truth, and memory that persists. He said, it is so important that our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren understand all the hardships that their ancestors had to endure. They also need to understand how their ancestors persevered and won. Again, President Putin, we have a responsibility to our past and to our future to do our utmost to prevent those horrible tragedies from ever happening again. President Putin is quite the historian, and in research that he presented, he talked about material that's now becoming unclassified, and there's an opportunity to pursue deeper truths. He quoted Winston Churchill in 1939. Here he is speaking in the House of Commons. "We shall be in mortal danger if we fail to create a grand alliance against aggression. The worst folly would be to drive away natural cooperation with Soviet Russia." Mind you, this is 1939. President Putin talked of the importance of how much international cooperation is needed for a common humanitarian task to fully research, remember, and honor the efforts of all the countries and all the peoples who fought against a common enemy, which resulted ultimately in victory. And this year, May 9th, some nights I stay up very late and watch RT so I can see all the overnight events that are going on in Moscow and elsewhere. But on May 9th, in his speech about the military parade, he talked about welcoming representatives of Azerbaijan, Armenia, Belarus, India, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, China, Mongolia, Serbia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, all welcome to march in a parade along with the Russian soldiers, recognizing and honoring the multitude of ethnicities that led to victory in the war. President Putin also has spoken of the importance of maintaining close international cooperation. We need to remember how this victory came about. And then again, these are not my words, these are from President Putin. The core of the anti-Hitler coalition began to take shape immediately after the attack on the Soviet Union. The US and Britain unconditionally supported it in the fight against Hitler's Germany. At the Tehran Conference in 1943, Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill formed a grand alliance of great powers and agreed to elaborate coalition diplomacy and a joint strategy in the fight against a common, deadly global threat. The leaders of the Big Three had a clear understanding that the unification of industrial resources and military capabilities of the USSR, the United States, and the United Kingdom would give unchallenged supremacy over enemy forces. You fast forward, there is a time of victory. The Grand Alliance was formed. Again, in President Putin's words, at that time, at the time of victory, now the leaders of the USSR, the United States, and the UK faced a monumental task. Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill are representing these countries with different ideologies, different state aspirations, interests, cultures, but they all demonstrated great political will. They rose above the contradictions and the preferences, and they put the true interest of global peace at the forefront. As a result, they were able to come to an agreement and achieve a solution from which all humanity has hence benefited. In Putin's words, the victorious powers have left us with a system that has become the basic foundation of the intellectual and political quest of centuries of mankind. A series of conferences, Tehran, Yalta, San Francisco, Potsdam, laid down a foundation that now for 75 years has created a world with no global war, despite many contradictions. Going back, after there were those serious military defeats in Russia in 41, the Russian people came together, evacuating people to the east, creating manufacturing centers. By 1943, the Soviet people did something that seemed impossible on the front lines and on the home front. It is still hard to realize, understand, and imagine the incredible efforts, the courage, the dedication that all these its great achievements were founded upon. Personally speaking, I grew up with a military father in the US Air Force. Before I was born, he was stationed at Ladd Field, which was part of the route of the Alaska-Siberia route. As I grew up, I learned from my father about the importance of these international relationships. And then in recent years, I served on the Bravo 369 board, which also wanted to uphold positive international relations and talk about how important it was that during the Great Patriotic War, during World War II, that we were allies and did our best to bring our world to a new standard. Last summer, Ambassador Antonov came to Alaska, and he made mention about how important these alliances were. And he also visited the Siberian-Alaska Memorial in Fairbanks. Again, going back to the words of President Putin, and again, I would be very glad to share the speech that I'm pulling this from. I cannot find the words that adequately express how well he expressed these concepts. Again, President Putin saying specifically, honoring veterans who did everything that they could for the victory and remembering those who died on the battlefields is our moral duty. In Russia, in the Soviet Union, over 27 million citizens lost their lives on the fronts. They lost their lives in German prisons. They starved to death. They were bombed. They died in ghettos and in the furnaces of Nazi death camps. The USSR lost 1/7 of its population. Comparatively speaking, I believe the USA lost perhaps 1 in 300. Quite a difference. In President Putin's words, he said, drawing upon a shared historical memory, we can learn to trust each other, and we must do so. This will serve as a solid basis for successful negotiations, for action, for the sake of enhancing the stability and security on our planet, and for the sake of prosperity and well-being of all countries. Without exaggeration, it is now our common duty and responsibility towards the entire world, towards the present and towards the future generations. So in conclusion, and these being my words, the importance of efforts to preserve and strengthen global peace in this multipolar world is one of the most important lessons that we have from the Great Patriotic War and the Second World War. But before we share a toast and ponder these thoughts, I would like to share 2 quotes from Ambassador Anatoly Antonov, who visited Alaska in 2019. And these are his quotes from July 2020. He says, Ambassador Antonov says, I would like to conclude with the words of the Russian president, said on June 24th at the military parade commemorating the 75th anniversary of the victory in Great Patriotic War. We understand how important it is to strengthen friendship and trust between our nations. We are open to dialogue and cooperation on most pressing issues on the international agenda. Among them is the creation of a common, reliable security system, something that our complex and rapidly changing modern world needs. Only together can we protect our world from new and dangerous threats. And then Ambassador Antonov ended with this very interesting quote. I'll say it, and then I'll tell you the very interesting source. So Ambassador Antonov said, I would like to share another important idea. In the end, the root of man's security does not lie in his weapons and weaponry, but in his mind. What the world requires is not a new race towards armament. What the world requires is a new race towards reasonableness. We had all better run in that race. And these exact words were from Robert McNamara, who formerly served as the Secretary of Defense in the USA under John F. Kennedy. So now, I'm going to pour some champagne, and I would like to join everyone in sharing a toast. Bear with me while I stand up. I truly believe that we all have a critical role If not us, then who? If not now, then when? It's up to us all. So cheers, na zdrowie, prost.
Cheers.
I would also like to join and drink a toast to the health of Boris Feldman, our veteran, who is still with us up until this moment. Wish him good health. Okay.
Absolutely.
And happy victory.
Celebrate the 100 years with him.
Да, я тоже хотела сказать огромное спасибо Борису Михайловичу за такое прекрасное упоминание. Интересное, как он все рассказал, и большого здоровья ему еще на многие годы. Вот, с юбилеем. Спасибо.
Okay, the participants, I will play this 5-minute movie. It's a heartbreaking on one part, and on the other part, it's an inspiring, absolutely movie about the 101 Uzbek soldiers. Mostly, they were Uzbek soldiers from Samarkand. There were other nations from the Middle Asia here, so I will play this movie.
101. Ровно столько пленных солдат из Узбекской ССР во время Великой Отечественной войны привезли спецпоездом в оккупированную фашистами Голландию. Там, в лагере смерти Амерсфорд, простые узбеки по сценарию Геббельса должны были сыграть важную роль в поднятии духа немецкой армии, но этим планам не суждено было сбыться. Как написал в своем дневнике один из пленных голландцев, прибывшие советские пленные не были похожи на русских. Невысокого роста, со смуглой кожей и миндалевидными глазами. Это уроженцы далекой Средней Азии. Их поместили не в барак, как остальных, а в отдельный загон под открытым небом, окруженный колючей проволокой. Отношение именно к этим узникам было особенным. Их почти не кормили, отправляли на самую тяжелую работу, а после избивали дубинками и прикладами. Нацисты называли их между собой «Untermenschen» – «недочеловеки». Другие пленники недоумевали, почему к этим людям так относятся, будто они животные. Обстановка на фронте была удручающая, и Гитлер поручил что-то предпринять. Перед судьбоносной битвой за Москву необходимо было поднять упавший дух немецких солдат, которые с трудом взяли Смоленск. Фашисты за месяц брали целые государства, а тут на 2 с лишним месяца застряли в российской глубинке. И тогда министр пропаганды Германии Йозеф Геббельс решил сыграть на контрасте и показать противника жалким и ничтожным. Он задумал снять небольшой ролик, где советские солдаты рвут друг друга на части за кусок хлеба. Специально из числа военнопленных были выбраны люди с неевропейской внешностью. Была поставлена цель замучить их до буквально животного состояния, чтобы ничего человеческого в них не осталось, и швырнуть еду, как в стаде голодных зверей. Спустя какое-то время в лагерь приехали большие чины, а вместе с ними целый отряд кинооператоров и режиссеров, лучших в Германии. По некоторым данным, на исторические съемки приехал и сам Геббельс. Свет, камера, мотор. По периметру загона с узбеками выстроились арийцы, высокие, красивые, светловолосые, голубоглазые, как с обложки модного журнала. Они идеально контрастировали с темнокожими, измученными пленниками. Тут же подъехала машина и открыла багажный отсек. Оттуда разнесся немыслимый запах свежеиспеченного сдобного хлеба, от которого сглотнули слюну даже сытые арийцы. Кульминацией этой мерзкой идеи должна была стать булка хлеба, брошенная в загон под кинокамеры. Это должен быть великий фильм Рейха о том, как полуживотные бросаются на хлеб, грызя себе подобных зубами. Для немецких солдат это должен быть очень поучительный материал. У вас не должно остаться места для жалости к этому отребью. Это не люди. Но все пошло не так. Брошенная булка хлеба упала в середину загона. К ней подошел самый младший мальчишка. Гробовая тишина. Бережно ее поднял и трижды поцеловал, поднося поочередно к колбу, как святыню. А потом передал самому старшему. Потом узбеки сели в кружок, сложили ноги по-восточному и стали передавать по цепочке крошечные кусочки хлеба, словно плов на самаркандской свадьбе. Каждый получил кусочек, грел об него руки, а потом неторопливо, закрыв глаза, съедал. И в конце этой странной трапезы прозвучало «Кудука шукур», слава Богу. Немцы были вне себя от досады и ярости. Планы Геббельса разбились о благородство народа. Он не представлял, насколько величественными могут быть люди другой расы, какими могут быть отношения между ними, насколько любить родину и с достоинством уважать хлеб. После неудачного эксперимента все 101 узбек были жестоко избиты. Из героической сотни до апреля 1942 года дожили 77 человек, которых под предлогом перевода в другой лагерь расстреляли в лесу. Этот провал был настолько позорен, что не осталось никаких свидетельств в документах Рейха. Немцы, которые записывали каждый выломанный еврейский зуб, уничтожили все упоминания об этом случае. Остались только скудные свидетельства, которые восстановил голландский журналист Ремко Рейдинг, а Анвар Иргашев и Юлия Медведовская по этому расследованию написали книгу «101». На сегодняшний день известно, что один из голландских военнопленных делал записи в своем дневнике, по которым, собственно, и смогли восстановить часть произошедшего. Также он делал портретные зарисовки узников. 2 из них подписаны как Зоир Муратов и Хатам Кадыров. Из 1 400 000 воевавших узбекистанцев треть не вернулись с войны, и по меньшей мере 100 000 до сих пор считаются пропавшими без вести. Сегодняшнему поколению нельзя забывать, что эти 101 человек и еще сотни тысяч узбеков отдавали свои жизни за наше с вами будущее, сытое, мирное и достойное.
Вот, конец. Ну что, уже в некоторых штатах уже перевалило за 12, полночь, так что нам нужно будет с вами прощаться. Но мы говорим до свидания, но мы не прощаемся. Stay tuned because our organization is planning other conferences and events on Zoom. So we will let you know. Once again, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Sharing this time with us. Yes. I hope that you learned a lot today, especially our English guests. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Very, very interesting event. I loved it, even though I couldn't understand everything in Russian. Just very, very nicely done. Thank you so much.
Oh, you probably didn't get the translation because I sent the translations to everybody who required.
Yes. No, I got them.
Oh, okay.
And I read them.
All right. Okay, you got the gist. Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, everyone.
A toast to Galina. Thank you. You're a wonderful leader.
I wasn't the only one. I'm sorry, but I mean, I kind of pulled it off. But yeah, thank you to everyone who agreed to come and do the presentation. That was, yeah. So, and yeah, I'm really from the bottom of my heart. And today's, September 2nd, the end of World War II. And I'm very emotional right now. So yes, to the victory.
Спасибо всем огромное за приглашение. Очень интересная была конференция, очень интересные презентации. Спасибо всем огромное. И нашим ветеранам особенно.
If you wish to leave something in the chat, you can. All right, guys. I'm going to stop sharing. Good night and bye-bye.